Hi, everyone. My name is Ty Benson. I'm a regulatory quality specialist here at Lean RAQA. I'm going to be walking you through one of our most popular downloads on our website. It's called the Regulatory Pathway Assessment. So this is one of the first scopes of work we typically do for our clients here at Lean RAQA. And what is a regulatory pathway assessment? Well, a regulatory pathway assessment is a formal document that basically defines your regulatory strategy. It takes a look at, what your classifications are, who your competitors are, some important product features you need to be mindful of. If we complete this for you, we obviously put recommended next steps and risks to submission, or maybe risks if you're on a cutting edge novel technology. It's really just a nice formal report to get started. As I stated before, this download is available on the website. If you go to www.leanraqa.com, in the top right-hand corner, you'll see you can click for free guides. Go ahead and download this yourself and start filling in the documentation. If you feel like you have a medical device and you just don't know where to get started, this is where you start. And this is where we at Lean start all of our customers, if they're early startups or small innovators, or even if they're just expanding on additional product lines. This is the tool that we use to really help strategically decide what your company is going to do or what your options are. I'm going to walk you through some of the sections here and kind of how they work and what kind of information you document in them. There is quite a bit of pre-populated text in the free website. So of course, make sure that that text is applicable to you. Know that it's just kind of our default text. Something to note also that the guide that's available on the website is specific to the US and EU MDR. So it doesn't include an analysis to Canada, Australia, or any other foreign markets. These are two markets that are the most popular for people to reach out to us. That's why we kind of included it. But enough of that. Let's start talking about the document itself. So what do you really start with? Well, this is kind of what I've already told you. The purpose of this is to do an initial assessment of your regulatory requirements. And it doesn't help you very much if you don't know what your device is. This is, I think, for very early startups, the first place that many people actually write down what their product is. And it's really important in regulatory strategy to know how your product is going to be used, who's intended to use your product, what it's intended to do, what's your intended use or indications for use, and what is it composed of? Is it patient contacting? Is it hardware, software? Is it a system of devices that need to work together? A lot of time when people reach out to us, they have an idea, they might even have a prototype that they've been testing, but they've never formally described their device. This is a good place to start that, and it's really, really important and informative in what your regulatory strategy is, because, depending on your configurations, you could be one product code or another, depending on what your intended use is or indication for use determines if you're a class 1 or a class 2. Sometimes it determines what product code you are, what product code you're not. And so this is a good place to start, and it's more familiar territory for a lot of people, describing what you're building. So I've mentioned some words here like product code, device classifications. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube, I do recommend going ahead and checking out some of the other educational content we have available. We have, YouTubes for bringing your product to market that talks about classifications, product codes, how the US kind of works through things. Basically, in a very quick fashion, FDA has basically 4 categories for device classifications. You have class 1, 2, 3, and unclassified. Class 1 is low risk, Class 2 is medium risk, and Class 3 is high risk devices. Unclassified is a medley of different devices. And within the FDA realm, you basically get assigned a 3-letter product code. Now, the product code has a name associated with it and a regulation. And this is some of the most important aspects of your regulatory strategy. So what we do at Lean is we do a search for all of the different possibilities. Your device can be classified. If it can be classified under this product code, you know, one regulation might have half a dozen. We kind of find the right answer and tell you, okay, these 3 are the most likely, these 3 aren't. What's important when you are trying to complete a regulatory pathway assessment is to take advantage of the databases that the FDA has. They have the product code databases where you can just look up key product code words. They have the 510K database, which is really helpful. If you know that you have a competitor, if you can find their 510K, you can look at their product code, regulation, and summary. If you have a competitor that's registered and listed, you can look and see how they are listing their devices. All of this information is key in building your strategy. And what you can do is start to populate this table where you have a comparison of, okay, here's my device, here's competitor 1, 2, 3. And as I'm going through, I can see, okay, they have, you know, competitors 1 and 3 have the same product code, but my indication might be closer to product 2. Is that the area that I want to go? So it's really important to start filling in this information and know what your regulation is, because some regulations have special requirements. Know what your product code is, know if you're Class 1, know if you're 510K exempt. There's lots of exemptions and requirements that you can get from the FDA databases. And that's what we do here at Lean RAQA for our clients, is we put all of that work in together. If you know that you have a highly, you know, a likely 510K requiring device, so a device that requires a submission to FDA that's not a pre-market application, not a PMA, you can start to build that predicate comparison directly in this document. What's really nice about this is you can take this argument directly out of this template and start using it in maybe a pre-submission to the FDA if you need to confirm, you know, a predicate strategy or bench test requirements. You can use it directly in a 510K if you're starting to do your predicate comparison, because what FDA is going to be really looking for is how similar are you to your competitor or other existing technology, and are there any concerns about safety or efficacy that aren't being addressed? So you can start to fill in directly what you find from those databases into this document. So that's all US, and that's how US does FDA, you know, classifications. In the EU, it's a little bit different. In some ways, it's more straightforward, and in some ways it's not. You have what are called the MDR classification rules. In this document, we have the rules directly here, and you can start completing your rationale of your technology against them. So you know if rule 1 applies or doesn't apply, you can say it doesn't apply for whatever reason, or if it does, it applies because of XYZ. And once you have this completed, it's also really nice because once again, you can take your device classification justification and put it right in your technical documentation, which is really standard practice when you're developing submissions for EUs. Now, in the RPA, there is a lot of educational text because we at Lean RAQA want to empower our clients to know as much as they want about the process and also really understand, you know, they own everything at the end of the day, and we want to give them the knowledge that they need to be successful in a medical device industry. It's it's all of these little things that come together to make your company real and tangible and desirable for acquisitions or just to build out and have good technology. All of this education is built directly into the RPA template. So here we have, language about registration and listing in the US and the requirements that are in place, including your need for a quality management system. We also have a kind of flow chart here that shows you the different options available as a US company that's looking for, or as a US commercialization strategy. Here are some workflows about things you need to do. Unlike in other markets, the US has a lot of different ways you can interact with the agency directly. You can do, a pre-submission, you can do a 513G. Do you have specific product codes? Does your product code require clinical data? Can you go right to 510K? Basically, this flowchart is here to help direct you in the way you can see all the different things you might need to consider or do for a US commercialization strategy. Also, as part of the education piece, you can see here's the 510K and here's de novo and PMA. And you can just see the prices as they increase or change across the board. And also the amount of review days. This is really important because a lot of people want to go straight for, a de novo indication because, as startups, a lot of times you have very novel, cutting edge technology, and you want to just get that big shiny apple all at one time instead of taking it in bites. But it's not always the best strategy. A lot of times a very concrete strategy is getting a clearance on just the 510K portion on maybe a simplified version of the device and then going for the de novo, because you can get that, in anywhere from 4 to 6 months on average, instead of having to wait a whole year for your clearance. So you can get the simplified version, get some money coming in from the market, get some feedback and testing from the market, and then go for your de novo indication. And if you're interested in reading more, obviously this is all included in our download. There's information on the de novo pathway in here. There's information on 513Gs, which is a very specific type of communication to the agency. It's focused primarily on classification requests, and also, if you have a concern, if you're going to be, basically if you report to CDER, CBER, or CDRH, this is the mechanism that many people use. Also, there's the FDA pre-submission program, which is a free method of communication to the agency. Just like we had for FDA commercialization, we have a flowchart here for EU commercialization. And it doesn't look as complex as the one for FDA because FDA has a lot more mechanisms of communication, but there is more work sometimes with EU commercialization, because for any EU commercialization that is not 1S self-certifying, you're going to have to work with notified bodies, do formal audits, stage 1, stage 2 assessment audits before you can even begin your technical documentation review. So there's just some nuances and things that you need to think about as a startup company. What makes sense to spend your funds where's the appropriate strategy? What's the easier market to pursue? And again, there's more information about the different types of classification and CE mark certification, also self-certification. Under MDR, there are additional post-market surveillance requirements. So we have some information in here. And lastly, but not least by any means, it's always a good practice to put in any test methods, standards, guidance documents that you find during your review of what's applicable to your device. You know what some of the big hitters are: 10993 biocompatibility, 60601 electrical safety, 62304 software development as a medical device. Those standards need to go in here. If you have, you know, a device like a pulse oximeter or a surgical mask, they have specific standards that they need to be tested to. So you should be already including those in there. That's all very good feedback for your design history file and your design and development planning, because those regulatory requirements should be design inputs for you. And you can, again, that's another way that this document gets repurposed and reused as you go through the method of filling it out and putting it together. And what is any good project without conclusions and recommendations? Always, always, you do all the work to fill this out. The conclusions and recommendations should be clear. Anyway, thank you so much for your time today. My name is Ty Benson. As I mentioned before, you're welcome to download this from the leanraqa.com website. It's in the top right-hand corner, free guides. If you see this and you feel a little intimidated and you want to talk about it, always feel free to put time on the company calendar. I think even at the top of this, there is a handy link. So hopefully this was helpful, at least in providing a high-level review of the documents and kind of the information that we put in there. Thank you very much. Have a good day.